Welcome back to Second Breakfast and our ongoing film discussions, bringing you the best thoughts, theories, and literary analysis this side of Phil's Tire Town.
That's very good. I thought you were going to say something like the tennis court, but that's even better.
This is our Valentine's Day special. We're finally talking about Challengers.
Happy Valentine's Day. This movie is all about love. It's a sweet rom-com, isn't it? Isn't that what it is?
It is. We've got quite an episode planned for you. I have a big-ass Macbeth theory that I want to roll through, and then Maggie's going to take us through costuming, color, sound, imagery, and all the other beautiful supplemental storytelling that takes place here.
I can't believe we didn't do an episode about this when this movie came out a year ago, but I think it just sort of fell into the mix of all the other things we were engaging with. We were prepping for the release of House of the Dragon. Remember, we were doing a lot of that stuff, and I think we just didn't talk about it. And when we did our Breckies, which is our end of the year episode we always do, where we do sort of a wrap up of the year, our year in review, we sort of pick our favorites. Challengers made my top 3 for this year. And I was like, not just movies, they're just like everything I engaged with this year. And I was like, why didn't we do an episode? So we thought, for Valentine's Day, to celebrate love, healthy love, let's talk about Challengers.
And we're doing it right.
Yeah,
we do this sometimes where we need to take time to do an episode properly. We did this with Oppenheimer a few years ago.
That's right.
Go check out that episode. I think it holds up. So
there are a couple episodes of that, actually, right?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Sometimes we get excited.
Also, should go without saying, we're going to spoil this movie. So if you haven't seen it, just be warned.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it and you've only seen the trailer, you have no idea what this movie is like. The trailer, it's one of the worst trailers ever. It does not accurately depict the tone and style of this movie. So this movie is a ride.
It's
Please
on
go watch
Amazon
it.
Prime,
yeah,
which I'm sure you somehow have access to.
Everybody has that.
Go
yeah.
check it out and then come back, because I don't want to ruin this experience for anyone.
Yeah.
But my big theory that I want to play with today is that Challengers is Macbeth on a tennis court.
Awesome.
So we're going to do some
hear
mapping like we usually do with these Shakespeare or Faustus comparisons. But before we do that, I think we have to acknowledge that there's a slight genre jump between the battlefield tragedy with supernatural elements of the original Macbeth and this tennis drama.
Right.
And usually that doesn't matter. Usually we can map things regardless. But I think...
Well, and that's the joy of Shakespeare, is that it applies regardless of the genre or type of story.
Yes,
you know?
It's eternal.
Yeah.
And I think Macbeth is not really about ghosts or witches in the same way Challengers isn't really about tennis.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
these are backdrops. They're interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
But the big difference between Challengers and Macbeth is that this story is fundamentally bloodless. No one dies.
Right, yeah.
There are
Not technically.
No one is unseamed.
Sure. Yeah. There's not, or beheaded.
Zendaya's knee is a little bit, but not really.
Haunted by that forever.
So we're not just mapping Macbeth onto a different story. We're kind of playing out a what-if scenario. As in, what if none of the characters died throughout the play? How would that have changed the ending? How does that inform it? Because you're stuck in this kind of arrested development, because every major plot point of Macbeth is someone dying. So leaving those characters alive means they continue to haunt and torment each other.
True.
And it means that we almost have to reinterpret the grisly deaths of the original play for their character implication. Like, yes, the murder of King Duncan sets a bunch of different things in motion, but what does it really mean? Like, what function does it serve for the overall narrative?
Right, it's more about Macbeth.
And Lady Macbeth. I think it is the death of their innocence.
Yes.
The beginning of their scheming and complicity. It's them going past that point of no return, and then it spirals from there. But this is interesting because there's no... Like, the end game of Macbeth, you can't really apply here. That whole succession battle with Malcolm and Macduff... Those can't really happen because we don't have the prerequisite deaths.
I see, right.
So we're in this kind of stasis with a lot of these ideas and characters, but without the deaths. And I think that's going to grant us some extra layers of symbolism. And for me, as we work through the notes, I actually have a new, deeper understanding of Macbeth.
Cool.
After doing this analysis. So I hope you will too.
I mean, that's a best case scenario when you're doing something like this. Great.
Yeah, that is not usually the case. Usually I understand the modern corollary better, not the original source material.
Right.
But this one I think pays dividends in both directions.
Lovely.
So let's do our character mapping, our who's who.
Right, yeah.
All of these are going to be curveballs. Here, let me go off notes for a second.
Okay.
If you were just to say, hey, Macbeth, Challengers, what are the comparisons there? You would probably say, well, Art and Patrick, they're on a team together and they're kind of colleagues, and then there's this woman who kind of disrupts and destroys their life for fun. So maybe they are Macbeth and Banquo, and she's Lady Macbeth because she's so scheming.
Yeah, that's the easiest one, yeah.
And that's completely wrong. And I think my version is much more interesting and I think has a stronger root in the text of Challengers.
Okay, cool.
I think mine's better. It's all subjective, but mine's better.
Right. Okay.
So let's start with Tashi.
There's no one else here, so we can go with yours. Yeah.
Well, you get to be the voice of the audience. You get to give me shit when I go off off book here.
You got it.
Let's start with Tashi or Zendaya. I'm going to use character names because it's easy. It's three people. It's Tashi, Art, and Patrick. Even I can keep my mind wrapped around three names.
Yeah, you can learn it. Yeah, it's okay.
My argument is that Tashi is Banquo.
Okay.
So her career is sidelined pretty early on in the story.
Well, that's true.
In the same way Banquo's is when he's murdered.
Yes.
But Tashi is reduced to coaching champions. And that's what we see her do through the rest of the bulk of the movie, really.
Yeah, really.
Which perfectly echoes the prophecy in Macbeth, where the witches are talking to Macbeth and Banquo, and they tell Banquo, you shall not be king, but you shall beget kings.
All right. So instead of kings, it's champions. Okay, I see.
Right. And there's also, on a more literal level, the fact that she has kids.
Sure. Well, I just had a thought. I was like, are they getting Lily to play tennis? Are they trying to instill, like, we never see them play with that. Like, Lily's just there as, like, their kid, but we never see them invested in getting her into sports. Maybe she's too young.
But
also they're focused on Art's career and not getting her to play.
And because this is a bloodless rendition or deathless rendition of Shakespeare, Banquo isn't actually killed, so we don't have to do the fleance chase through the Highlands.
Of course,
That part doesn't happen, so we don't really need a fleance.
Yeah.
But I think it tracks that Tashi is Banquo, because that shift to coaching champions, sometimes she refers to Art or Patrick as my little white boys, or she talks about them as students, and she's
as beneath her.
And she's kind of in this more advisory or almost avuncular role. So Banquo's death, if we're translating this into a deathless version of Shakespeare, Banquo's death is mirrored in Tashi's injury.
Yeah.
Which kills her career ambitions. In the same way Banquo's death kills his ambition to ever be king.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that is kind of his career path. He's trying to be CEO of, I don't know, England.
Yeah. CEO.
But it's also that
You've seen Succession too much, I think.
that death, or sort of figurative death, takes Banquo out of the running as competition for Macbeth.
Sure.
That's why Macbeth orders the death. It's
that's the point, is to remove him as a competitor. Yeah.
So immediately we beg the question, if Tashi is Banquo,
who's Macbeth?
Who's Macbeth?
Yeah, right. That was my immediate thought, because I was like, how do you start with Banquo? You have to start with Macbeth, but
no,
interesting.
You start with Banquo.
All right.
Art is Macbeth.
Okay.
Because he is the closest friend and ally of Banquo. Immediate rejection, I can already see written on your face.
Right.
How is this possible if he's married to Tashi? How can your Macbeth be married to your Banquo? The answer, I think, is right there in every scene of the movie, because they have a shockingly platonic and passionless relationship.
Yes, they do. It's very true.
Also, he's the one who is achieving throughout their relationship, throughout the course of the film. He's by far the most successful. He's the one with his face on the tennis rackets.
Right.
He would be the title character. If this was a movie that was named after the title character,
sure,
he would be your kind of traditional protagonist role, where he's slowly gaining these promotions and having these setbacks, and it's his notable career track that we're following on the way towards winning all these major awards.
Is he as ambitious as Macbeth, though? Like, I mean, that's kind of a whole point of the play, is like this overwhelming, dangerous ambition.
We're going to get there, because I think that is shifted from what would happen in Macbeth, because a lot of these people don't die. Because I think it's mostly the deaths and the murders that motivate Macbeth to his wild fury and achievement. And without those deaths, I think you have a bit of this melancholy, a bit of this lag, where you can see the way Art talks to Patrick in the sauna. That's the most cocky he ever gets.
That's true. It's like it's almost out of character for him, and it feels very performative and very unnatural.
But I think that's how he wants to feel.
Oh,
when he
yeah,
puffs
no,
out
you're
his
right.
chest, he's like, I win. often.
Yeah.
I think that is that Macbeth part where the murders and the succession of kind of slowly, bloodily climbing that ladder, I think that's what gives him that swagger. But Art isn't claiming any scalps.
Right.
So he doesn't get that swagger. And the only person he can really flex on is Patrick. But Patrick is the wild card. He is the monkey wrench in this analysis, because this is the main thing that matters in this this theory I wanted to present to you. Patrick is Lady Macbeth.
Right. I was going to say, because as you were talking, I was thinking, well, Art doesn't have a whole lot of ambition. Really, that comes from Patrick. And then I thought, well, in the play, Macbeth only gets done when he gets done because of Lady Macbeth. She's the one who pushes him on.
Yes.
And it's interesting because you could say, oh, well, Tashi is obviously Lady Macbeth. She's the coach. She pushes Art, but she doesn't. She doesn't. I mean, maybe she did early on in his career, which we don't see in the movie. But she, on screen, she's doing a bad job pushing him.
She resents him.
She is not motivating him. He is not. And he even says point blank, here's what I need you to say to me. And she doesn't. She doesn't do it. And you see him stagnating and struggling and wanting to give up. But the one person who does push him is Patrick. I think that's very correct.
Yes. So Patrick is Lady Macbeth because Patrick is the instigator. He's the one who stokes and inflames the ambitions of everyone around him.
Yes.
And ultimately, like you just said, I'm so glad you got there too. Patrick is the one that ultimately inspires the violent ascension of our Art Macbeth. And there's a beautiful, I think, kind of nod there in the fact that Art is his doubles partner.
Yes. Right. They're I mean, and even when they, at the beginning of the story, like Tashi comes in and like calls them, like they call each other a couple, and she says, I don't want to be a homewrecker. And they joke and say, it's an open relationship, but they've been bunkmates since they were 12. Like they have a very special connection and history. Right. Exactly. Which is like more akin to a marriage than Art and Tashi's marriage.
They're also the only couple we see really consummate their connection. I think there's a stronger tie there.
That's very
true.
And
that thing that you threw a spotlight on earlier of the way Lady Macbeth aggravates and motivates and undermines and undercuts, and she's the flint that is constantly sparking Macbeth to achieve and overreach. I think you can track that between Art and Patrick, because most of Art as our Macbeth's achievements, it's him like shadowboxing Patrick throughout the film. Even though they don't see each other much, in absentia, Patrick becomes this grindstone of resentment, of inspiration. You know, will you still love me if I can't beat Patrick's Zweig? It's the thing that keeps him going.
Right.
But the sort of Achilles heel for Patrick as our Lady Macbeth, the reason I don't think you can call him Macbeth or Banquo, is because he's not good at being his own player.
Yeah, you're right.
In the same way Lady Macbeth couldn't be, I mean, apart from the gender thing, I don't think she could have ascended in the same way Macbeth did or Banquo tried to.
I see.
Because Patrick is such an undisciplined player. His great skill is drawing out the fire in the other two characters. For example, and I have examples for both of them here.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the finale later. We kind of have to build to that. But
okay.
He is the one ultimately who focuses Art in the finale, who lights him up and elevates him to greatness. So he has that aggravating kind of rubbing the two sticks together until the fire breaks out. But even with Tashi, it's his fight with her where he calls her out on, I mean, it's the most direct anyone is with her throughout the movie.
Yeah.
It's that fight with Tashi that precedes her injury, because she goes into that fight running too hot. So he has this ability to inflame those around him.
And there's even an argument, maybe you're going to get there, but if with Tashi's injury sort of being Patrick's fault, that's a like blood on his hands situation, you know? Like, I think there's an argument to be made that he feels guilty about ruining Tashi's career for like the next decade of his life.
I think the blood on his hands, we will get there, and I think it is tied up between those two characters, but I have a slightly different angle on it. But I want to talk about that when we get there.
Okay.
The other big elephant in the room here is that Lady Macbeth, of anyone in the play, has the most sexual agency and magnetism of any of the principal leads.
Yes.
And I think that's where the strongest case is, that Patrick is Lady Macbeth. And this is where the complexity of the film's love triangle really maps onto Macbeth, and I think can teach us something new about a 400-year-old play.
Cool. Okay.
Because it's true that Lady Macbeth and Patrick have that singular sexual agency and magnetism throughout the film. Where Lady Macbeth initiates all of the sexuality of the play, Patrick is the one who fizzles with the other two. Even in the way he leans or grabs or kisses, or everything seems to be initiated by him.
Say he's the primary initiator for sure. The others do their own things as well. Everybody's interested and passionate and has desire, but it's Patrick who does a lot of that initiating.
And if we can stress test some of this character mapping, if you have Art as Macbeth and Tashi as Banquo, and Patrick as Lady Macbeth, the kind of weird thing for me that made me second guess some of this is that in the play, I never think of Lady Macbeth and Banquo having much to do with each other at all.
Right, yeah, you never think of that.
Versus the intense connection that Tashi and Patrick have in Challengers.
Right.
Like, Lady Macbeth has a tangled enough relationship with her husband, but Banquo is just kind of her husband's friend, right? And this is where I think we really get pay dirt, because no, that's not true at all.
Okay.
Things really only go to shit in the play and for Macbeth after Banquo's death.
Yeah.
And if we're saying Banquo's death, symbolically, is Tashi's injury, then if she's taken off the board, she still exists, but in this like passenger role that you talked about, she's not really coaching or moving him along.
No, she's just haunting both of them.
Exactly. Haunting,
Yes.
which makes that Banquo's ghost allegory, I think, even cleaner. But that means that if she's off the board in that real-time sort of way, then at this point, Macbeth's sole closest advisor would be Lady Macbeth, would be Patrick, who's also kind of reduced to this specter. But that's when things start to go kooky. Because before that death of Banquo and Lady Macbeth are kind of colleagues. They're kind of equals, where they are in competition and balance. They're kind of the two key influences on Macbeth. Together they are the devil and the angel on his shoulder. Or, as Tashi and Patrick put it in the movie, they're peers.
Okay.
And I mean that because, sorry, there's a dog in the background.
Sorry about that.
They're playing the same game.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they understand each other so much. So many of the scenes between Tashi and Patrick as the movie progresses feel like asides.
Yes.
In a Shakespearean drama where they are scheming and plotting together on someone else's behalf.
Yes. It's always about art. It's not just about the two of them.
But after that symbolic death of Banquo, where Tashi is sidelined and Patrick is the big influence, when that balance between those two, being the angel and devil on our Art Macbeth's shoulders, look at how everything spirals. This is where Art totally spirals into the melancholy that I do think has an echo in Macbeth. Scorpions in my mind.
Right.
He has that whole period of depression and over... It's not just self-analysis, it's self-doubt, it's self-loathing, it's guilt, it's insecurity, it's this obsession with prophecy and legacy, power plays. He's grasping for powers, he's isolating himself from all of his allies, in the same way we see Art sitting alone in a storage closet before a big match.
Yeah, totally isolated. You don't get the sense that he has any friends or community. He even, you never see him talking to his daughter or interacting with her or the grandmother.
Unless she's asleep.
Right, yeah, he's completely isolated.
And he's almost sleepwalking towards this career achievement that he thinks he's supposed to do, kind of to honor his Banquo wife, Tashi, where there's this grand slam and he just needs one more to get an EGOT or whatever the sports thing is. But he's just kind of going through the paces of this coach's vision that doesn't have any inspiration on either end. But because this is kind of a deathless version of Shakespeare, he still technically has his Banquo around him, and he still kind of has his Lady Macbeth around him, but they're both broken. Tashi's not competing anymore in professional tennis, and Patrick isn't competing with Art anymore.
Right.
So like you said before, I'm always impressed by how you get things faster than I do, because I have to do all this prep beforehand. He has all these ghosts around him. Yeah. He's surrounded by the potential of these other people, the comparisons to these other people that he respects, admires, fears, but he doesn't really achieve success or greatness until his Lady Macbeth returns, reverts to the mean, and that fire and provocation, the insult and injury, that's what ultimately drives him to soar
Yes.
like Macbeth does towards the finale.
Absolutely.
So now we have to talk about the finales.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Of both the movie and the play. And I think you have to talk about them together to kind of answer some questions and find more of this pay dirt, more of these revelations. So the first one is the red light. This is one that I was chewing on when I was thinking back about the movie. The red light of the car when Patrick and Tashi are reunited.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Before they have sex in the back of the car.
Yes, the night before the finale.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they're standing together behind the car, bathed in this red light.
Yes.
I don't know why, but that was the image that stuck with me, because I did most of these notes before we rewatched the movie.
Okay, yeah.
That was one of those images that was just right there in my head.
It's a strong image, yeah.
And it felt ripe for this kind of analysis. And I think it is one of those what-if scenarios, where if Banquo hadn't died, and Lady Macbeth hadn't died yet, it's Macbeth's two advisors meeting up to talk about him, to scheme around him, and ultimately jointly betray him.
Yes.
But in the film, the entire scene is drowned out in that red light. And that's what got me thinking of out damned spot.
Yes.
That's the blood on my hands, I think, with the red light that's covering both of their bodies. And I think this is the moment of Lady Macbeth's greatest guilt. I mean, that's why she's trying to wash her hands when she's sleepwalking there. I think that's the blood on the hands, because that scene, even before they have sex and, that's breaking the marriage vows, even before that, them even discussing the possibility of throwing a match when they're all three are so sacrosanct and serious about this game and the ethics of this game and how important their true achievement and performance is, I think that's kind of a symbolic murder of those relationships.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I think that's kind of the greatest sin, which is foreshadowed and bathed in blood. If you want to take it a step further, I think in figurative terms, you could view this moment as Lady Macbeth's suicide.
Oh, interesting.
Because it is Patrick finally killing that relationship with art and
That's
breaking
true.
and betraying it.
That's
because
true.
he knows he's a better player, but he also knows how seriously art takes that.
Yeah.
And I don't think the part of him that loved art would ever throw that game and do that disrespect to him.
I see.
I don't think he would allow that.
Sure. And I was thinking last night as we were rewatching it, like in that moment when he decides to tell Art that he slept with Tashi by touching the ball to the racket, not only is he revealing that betrayal, but by doing that, I think that also makes Art question, are you going to throw this game and let me win? If I win, will I have truly won? So he has ruined both the Art's marriage with Tashi, Art's friendship with Patrick, which is already messed up anyway, but also Art's relationship to tennis and himself as a player. Like he has ruined every part of Art's psyche by doing that one thing. So he's totally like, it's like point of no return for Patrick.
Exactly.
You can't come back from that.
I think you could make the case that him possibly throwing the match is a greater betrayal than sleeping with his wife.
Yes, exactly. Right. And it's like the biggest betrayal is Art wondering that, Art knowing that Patrick could be doing that. Like that's like, I was thinking to myself, that's the worst thing for Art is like, not only that it wouldn't be him losing, it wouldn't be even Patrick sleeping with Tashi, it would be wondering if he truly won.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that would haunt him maybe more.
Way more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of an interesting implication for this Deathless Macbeth formulation. If Banquo hadn't died and had continued to just kind of mill around while Macbeth failed and succeeded and slowly climbed that ladder, I think this is interesting because we never get to see this in the play. We never get to see how would Lady Macbeth look at Banquo? How would she think of him if he was taken off the board and sidelined?
Sure.
And I think it's very interesting that the film plays out this what if and teases that, there is potential for a real connection or attraction there, where Banquo almost becomes another horse to back.
I see. Yeah.
Or, as we talk about one of the times that Tashi and Patrick reunite, maybe another coaching opportunity.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
So,
because like Lady Macbeth's feelings towards Macbeth, her husband, you could argue as like, her wanting to push Macbeth so much kind of means that maybe she doesn't respect him all that much. Like she pushes him so much, and there are many readings of the play and interpretations of it where she, doesn't respect him and would cheat on him given the opportunity. He's just what she has right now, so she's making it work with what she has. But yeah, I think if Banquo was still around and could be another potential, a better match for her, and I mean that it in terms romantically, but also in terms of competition and push and drive, I think there's an argument to be made that she would have betrayed him in that way as well.
The next element of the finale that I think tracks with Macbeth is the windstorm. The windstorm during that scene that we just talked about with the red light and the car and them cheating and breaking up this marriage. Probably. I don't know. That's my assumption.
Yeah, you've got to assume. Who knows?
The windstorm. And I was trying to make sense of what is that? Because it's
why have that? It's so there. It's so intense.
Yes, and so visual.
Yeah.
This windstorm that is the background of the finale, I consider that sort of the finale of the movie.
Yeah,
and then the tennis match is kind of something else. But that windstorm, I think, is the animation, the coming to life of Birnam Wood.
Oh, cool.
And I think that's why it's visualized by paper.
Paper?
There are all these papers flying around. That's how you make a windstorm visible on screen.
Right, you got to show things blowing in the wind.
And it's all paper.
Interesting. Wood, okay.
Birnam Wood, right. Because what happens in that scene, even though technically there's some wind and people in a car,
right.
What's happening is this symbolic storming of the castle
yes.
that embodies this ultimate strategic move against art or Macbeth, where in the play he says, I mean, the reason the Birnam Wood thing matters, he says, I can't die. There's no way I'm going to die. I've got this prophecy. I've got these witches. It would be as unlikely as Birnam Wood moving to Dunsinane.
Yeah, right. Lo and behold.
The corollary here is the equally improbable thing at this point, so many years later, of his old friend and rival sleeping with his wife.
Right, yeah.
Who's his coach.
Yeah, who ruined her career, yeah.
and he thinks that she hates Patrick, and so he would talk about it in that same sort of flippant way.
Couldn't even imagine it.
And it's that shattering of a worldview, of an understanding. Watching a forest move towards you as you're on the parapet of a castle. It's that same ultimate betrayal and confusion and undermining of his whole life that cracks him open. And here we have to talk about the ending.
Okay.
When Patrick does the racket symbol to communicate to Art that he has slept with Tashi. I think this is Macbeth's death, where it's the ultimate kind of flaming out of his ambitions, his ascension, and it can only happen after the death of Lady Macbeth.
I see.
Because you remember, it's Macbeth hearing from some of his, he hears a scream in the background, and then some people run in and say, hey, the queen is dead. Lady Macbeth is dead. And then he gives this whole soliloquy, and then he runs off into battle and loses and dies. So that death of Macbeth can only happen after the loss of Lady Macbeth. But in this framing, where no one can really die,
right.
They can only die symbolically. They can only be, dead to you,
right.
if you look at it that way.
Right.
That can only happen after he finally loses both of his key advisors. So it's Macbeth learning about the death of Lady Macbeth, going despondent and unloading. This is him finding out that his friend betrayed him. Not just they were both after the same girl in high school and college,
right.
But that he slept with his wife.
The mother of his child, yeah.
And I think that severs that connection. There's still a weird intimacy and everything there, but I think it breaks something fundamental between the two of them.
Definitely, yeah.
So it's after losing his Lady Macbeth, that's when Macbeth can play at his best and rally and run into battle, guns blazing. He can finally confront and escape Patrick's shadow in that final match of the game. And it's even more interesting because he's still talking to his Lady Macbeth. She's not dead, she's just dead to him.
I see.
And this is where we kind of have to ascend into the symbology because we don't have a bloodbath at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Because the movie ends as that match is wrapping up. But it's not fully over. We don't see exactly what happens at the end of the match. We don't see if he goes on to complete the Grand Slam and Art has his championship season.
Right.
We don't see if Patrick's career ever gets anywhere.
We don't see what happens with Tashi and Art's marriage. Yeah.
The movie ends abruptly. And I thought this was so exciting at the time when we saw the movie, but I think it makes sense in the Macbeth analysis too. I think it's ending before Macbeth can flame out. Because I think this is the pinnacle of his career. even if he did go on to beat all these other faceless opponents and win Wimbledon and this Grand Slam and all these other championships, I don't think that would matter. I also don't think he would win.
Right.
I think this is a breaking point for him, for his marriage, for his life, like you said, for his relationship with tennis. So symbolically, if there's no death in this version, we can't show him actually die. And I think symbolically, whatever his next match is, he's going to lose his head.
Right, yeah.
In the same way Tashi got her injury when she was so thrown and distracted by Patrick's bullshit.
Yeah, so he's effectively dead here.
That's about to happen to him. So we cut things off, and we're about to talk about the score, so this is me throwing a bounce pass to you.
Okay.
I think we cut off the movie amidst all of the sound and fury before we get to tomorrow.
Oh, cool. Okay. Can you remind the audience about the tomorrow?
That's part of that soliloquy that he gives after finding out that Lady Macbeth has died. And I think that is almost a tone poem for the last 10 minutes of this movie.
I see. I really, really like that. No, this is really great. I love this a lot because you've got all these symbolic deaths and real deaths. But I think the lingering question with the Macbeth thing, though, is who are the witches? You know? Yeah, did you think about that?
Yes, but I don't think they're really there. I just think that's part of this deathless version of the play. You also kind of lose the supernatural elements.
That's fair.
You could kind of, initially I was going to say that they all sort of see each other as the witches because they're always discussing their careers and their futures in the same way the witches are always talking about prophecies and futures and how you can live up to your potential and achieve.
Right.
Which is why they're so suspicious of each other and feed off each other, but I don't think it's necessary.
Sure. Yeah. Because I think we sort of started talking about the Macbeth idea on our own off pod, and we were like, oh, that's fun. And then you took it and ran with it. But I think one of the things I said to you was I think they're all their own witches. Like, I think, you know, at the beginning of the story, you see Patrick saying, oh, Tashi's going to have a foundation. She's going to be this, you know, life-changing champion forever. And they're always saying, oh, yeah, one day I'll beat you and this thing will happen. And tomorrow I'll go easy on you. Like, they're constantly, yeah, you're right, planning their futures and trying to figure out what's going to happen. So I think that's totally fair. This is a lovely analysis. I think that was really cool, and I feel like, yeah, I understand both the play and the movie even more.
There are so many retellings of Macbeth. There are so many stagings of the play that try to give more attention and screen time to Lady Macbeth. And I don't think it's trying to always fix some sort of gender disparity. I've heard that conversation.
Sure.
But I think at the root of that is people thinking that this is a really interesting, engaging, dynamic character.
I was going to say, she's just the best character in the play. That's what it is.
In the same way, sometimes you want a spin-off of a movie or a work of art because you just want to see more of a character. And that character, for me, is absolutely Patrick.
Well, exactly. Patrick is my favorite character in this. I mean, I love all three characters so much, but Patrick is, to me, the most interesting. He has more to do, and Tashi is also a fascinating character. She's such a piece of shit. But they all are. All three of them are bad people. But Tashi is another level of evil, and it's so fun to try to see that unpack before your eyes. But Patrick is the one who calls her out on it. Patrick is the one who knows, and that's what's so fascinating.
I think we were both struck by that on this second viewing a year later, basically. She didn't strike me as that level of evil the first time.
Oh, she did for me.
But then this time she did. I thought she was absolutely the villain of it.
Especially because going in, you know what happens. You know what she does at the end, and so you sort of are prepared you're primed to see the negative parts of her.
I don't see that as the most villainous thing she does. I think it's the way she feigns this threesome to just complicate and explode the relationship between these two guys.
She sees the whole thing as a game. I mean, that's her biggest thing, is everything is a game to her. It's all about tennis. One of the things I noticed, I'm going to sort of break down some of the elements in this movie that I think tell the story of these characters and their entangled relationships really well. But one of the things I noticed was that almost every time Art or Patrick try to connect with Tashi emotionally, they try to be vulnerable with her or understand their relationship with her better, she moves the conversation to tennis. She stops talking about whatever they're talking about and starts talking about tennis. Or she starts talking about tennis and the other one who's not in the room.
Yes.
Like if Art and Patrick or Art and Tashi are talking and he asks her a question, she'll talk about tennis and Patrick and vice versa. Like she just won't It's always about tennis. And even like when this right before she and Patrick have the big fight before her injury, they're on the bed and they're kissing and making out and they're talking about tennis.
Uh-huh.
And Patrick at one point goes, are we still talking about tennis? Because she says something about how he like always fucks up and can't be as good as Art or something. And she says, we're always talking about tennis. And he goes, can we not? And she says, okay. And then they stop making out. So like for her, she can only connect intimately, physically, when it's also about tennis. Like tennis is the central thing for her. And the whole movie is like the other two trying to connect with her outside of tennis. And she like won't let them. She just like keeps it as a game. It's so fascinating.
Because she can't love or respect Art because he's not playing with that level of vigor and ferocity that she wants.
Exactly.
He's trying to leave space in his life for his wife and child.
Right, yeah.
And she won't have it.
She won't have it. So one of the things, the entanglement in this movie is so beautiful. Like I love nonlinear storytelling, and I especially love it in this movie because I think it really emphasizes and highlights the entanglement of it all, of who wants who when, who actually wins Tashi first. Who does Tashi actually choose? What does Tashi want? What does Art want? What does Patrick want? It's so messy. And so I was, the first time we watched the movie, I was annoyed by how the timelines were identified, because it kept saying like 8 years previously, 3 weeks previously. And I was like, just give me a year, because I keep getting lost. Like, are we in 2006? Are we in 2017? Where are we? But I actually liked it this time around because I was like, it's actually kind of confusing. And that's good, because they're not sure where they are in time, what's happening, what they want, where they are, what their priorities are. And so I liked that, you know, if you pay attention, you can keep up with the timeline, but sometimes it's kind of tricky. And like, I liked that about it. I thought it was great.
It keeps it relative.
Yes, for sure.
And messy and emotional, instead of being objective, a big date flashing on the screen.
Exactly. I did like that. And it's relative, exactly, to them. It's insular to them. Like, this movie does take place in specific years and time, but it's more about, it's relative to them. One of the other things that really, I think, helps tell the story of this entanglement and messiness really, really well is the costumes and colors in this movie. I'm sure there are, YouTube videos out there where someone has broken down every single costume choice in this movie, and I'm not going to do that here, but I want to talk about it a little bit because I found it really interesting and effective. So when Tashi first meets Art and Patrick at that party in 2006, she says, oh, Fire and Ice. Like, that's what they're called. Like, they're this duo tennis team. They're called Fire and Ice. She goes, which one's which? And over the course of the movie, it becomes pretty clear. Art is ice, he's blue. Patrick is fire, red. And we see that played out in the finale, in the final match. Patrick is wearing a lot of red. He's got red in his shirt. He's got red on his racket. Art is wearing blue. He's wearing that great Uniqlo, polo with the dark blue accents, and he's got the blue, I'm not an athlete, those fucking weird strips he puts on his neck for his muscles or something,
His little cuff,
his
shorts.
Yeah, and you see, like, Tashi's wearing blue. Like, blue is Art's color, and red is Patrick's color. And so as you go through the movie, you can watch it and see, okay, like, this person's wearing red, this person's wearing blue. That kind of helps us understand where that person's loyalties are and what that means. But you'll also notice throughout the movie, everybody is constantly wearing each other's clothes. Like, the I Told You shirt gets worn by Tashi and then Patrick, and then Patrick again years later. That green button down that Art is wearing at the party and then Patrick puts on later in the hotel room. We see white t-shirts getting exchanged. So everybody is entangled in everybody else. But the color really is my favorite way to understand this. So at that, when Tashi is injured, when she has the fight with Patrick and then she goes out, both she and Art are wearing that like bold Stanford red color. Red is Patrick's color. And so when they're in the not the hospital, but like the med room after Tashi's been injured, they're both wearing this bright red. Patrick runs in, he's wearing the I Told You shirt, he's wearing gray. And they kick him out. They say, out, get out. And that's when like that relationship falls apart. But they're both wearing red. So it's like they're missing Patrick. Even though they're together and they kick Patrick out, they still are missing him. Like, he's not there. So they're wearing his color instead.
That's great. I didn't catch that at all.
I really liked that. And when Patrick comes to visit to Art and Tashi right before the injury, when he gets there, Art is wearing a red t-shirt and a red hat. So again, he's missing Patrick. But Patrick is wearing white. He's just wearing a plain white t-shirt. And so I think the argument there is he's not committing to anybody. He's this blank canvas. Is he there for Tashi? Is he there for Art? We don't know.
Because he also seems to be cheating on Tashi.
Well, exactly.
So he's kind of not showing his cards.
Exactly.
He's trying to go in neutral.
And he's just kind of, I'm whatever you want me to be.
Yes.
Exactly.
Blank slate.
Exactly. But then he changes into that I told you shirt after the fight, which is Tashi's shirt, but also makes him a little bit more like defiant. And no, I don't need either of you, you know. And then in the final challenger, like I said, the final, match, Tashi is wearing that blue and white dress. And blue is Art's color, right? But in that moment, we know as we watch the movie, that's the day after she has ultimately betrayed Art by sleeping with Patrick. And her loyalties are so skewed. But she is presenting this, like, she's performing in this moment. Her outfit is so put together and so artificial. She's trying to be like, I'm wearing blue and white. I'm Art's husband, Art's wife and coach. And I'm this, wealthy, put together, Art Donovan supporter. But in actuality, it's all so messy and fake underneath. And I even noticed, not even about color, but Tashi's necklaces in this scene.
Ooh.
So before this, in the days before, when she is meeting up with Patrick in these different moments at the hotel, outside, when they're smoking and stuff, she's wearing 2 necklaces and they're all intertangled up in each other. And I've layered necklaces before. That happens naturally. Necklaces entangle. But, a costume person on set is going to fix that. But they didn't. And for me, that means that it's all intertangled. She can't figure out what she wants or who she loves the most or who she wants to support. And then when she gets to that final match, her necklaces are perfectly separated. And again, I think it's a performance.
Yeah.
And even still, she's wearing a 3rd chain. She's wearing 3 separate chains, and they're all completely separate from one another. And so she's like presenting this front to everybody that, oh, I know exactly what I want. I can keep these different parts of my life separate. I'm on Art's team, but we know in actuality that's not the case.
I really like this. You kind of got me thinking here with Patrick wearing white as this blank slate where he's trying to perform this neutrality, this ultimate performance.
Mm-hmm.
Because throughout the movie, Art's clothes aren't just blue, they're always blue and white.
Yes.
As he's trying to perform as this ultimate suave athlete worthy of all these sponsorships and things.
Mm-hmm.
And even at the end, when Tashi's in the stands, she's also wearing blue and white.
Yes.
So this element of kind of insidious performance slowly starts to seep into Art and Tashi as well. But in that last moment, after Patrick, we see him say, I'm a piece of shit. I've always been a piece of shit, but I know that I'm a piece of shit.
Yes.
His outfit during the finale has no white in it at all.
No, and it's not performative at all. His outfit is, hobbled together because he has no money. He's wearing like plaid shorts and like this weird jersey that has like streaks of red in it. Like he can't help it. It's not performative at all. Exactly. He knows exactly who he is. He gives shitty little grins every other point in this match. Like he's like smiling at Art when he's eating the banana. Like he knows what he is. And Art and Tashi are trying so hard to pretend like they aren't that too. My favorite thing about the color though is the complication of the first party when they all first meet. Well, I mean, Art and Patrick obviously already know each other, but when they first meet Tashi. So in that party, Tashi is wearing a dark blue dress. Patrick is wearing light blue, and Art is wearing pink. So like everybody's colors are mixed up. Art is wearing pink, which is the light version of Patrick's red. Patrick is wearing light blue, which is the light version of Art's blue. And then Tashi is wearing dark blue. So you could, like, your first reading of that is, oh, she wants Art more than she wants Patrick. But that's not necessarily true because she's only just met them. And the one wearing blue is Patrick. And so we don't know who she wants more. Does she want Art or Patrick? Like, which color represents which boy to her? She's not really sure. And then when she goes back to their hotel room that same night, she's changed. And now she's wearing a dark pink jacket. So does she like red or does she like blue? We don't know. And then, of course, also in that hotel scene, Patrick is now wearing Art's green shirt. So like it is all so entangled at the beginning and you just don't know who she favors more. And I don't think she knows either because she doesn't yet know who either of those boys are. I also love that scene on the beach because she's sitting up on this rock like she's a mermaid and they're just staring at her like she's this siren as she's about to completely ruin their lives and, home wreck as she claims she's not going to do. It's really, really interesting. I was so fascinated by that choice.
Because you could say that her wearing the blue dress the first time is incidental. She doesn't know they're going to be there. She doesn't know they're going to meet them.
Of course not,
You cannot say the same about their clothes. And I think the way we're talking about this with this kind of this theory that's traveling along underneath the surface of the white color, them both wearing these light versions of blue and red. There's almost some white mixed in.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to perform as these great up-and-comers who are welcomed at these parties, but they're tinged with each other's colors. Because I think that's the way they're leaning at the time, which precedes the sort of false threesome later.
Sure.
And I think her first decision is to contrast the blue with this almost red.
Yeah.
Like it's an incidental dark blue, which looks like it's team art, but it's not on purpose. So then she has to balance that out by going on purpose red, but kind of off, so it's pink.
Right.
So it's these both like shots across the bow where she's toying with them the first chance she can get. But we see almost a genuine, I think, attraction between them in their more intentional color choices there.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's a beautiful way to just help us understand these characters right when they first are all in the same place together. So, and again, I'm sure there are plenty other ways to unpack the costumes, but those are the things that really stood out to me. The other thing that I think, the other element in this movie that is doing so much is the music and the sound. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the score. It's an incredible score. It's so just in your face. And I learned from an interview that was actually not the first score they came up with. I don't know if they wrote an entire score or they just had sort of like, here are some samples, but it was a really different kind of score. They said it was really like sensual and sexy and different. And Luca Guadagnino, the director, he said, that's nice, but can we try something different? Let's go for something a bit more like in your face, impossible to ignore, techno bombastic. And I think it works so well here because the music is not only exciting and pulsating and sensual and exciting, but it's so loud. It'll play not only during scenes of tennis, which that makes sense, you got this high energy, high octane thing. It'll also play during moments of dialogue. And that's my favorite one because it is so impossible to ignore. It's not just like subtly in the background. It doesn't just like, it doesn't fade in. It just like all of a sudden it's silent, they're talking, and then all of a sudden there's this pulsing, ridiculous music. And for me, it feels like the music when it's scenes between, any combination of two of them, when that music comes in, that's the missing person. That's the third person that they can't ignore. Even though they're trying to pretend like, Tashi and Art will be talking. They're trying to pretend like Patrick is out of their lives, but he's still there. And we know it as the audience and they know it too, but they're pretending he's not there. Same when Tashi and Patrick are making out in bed in the dorm room. The music is pulsing and they can't stop talking about Art. Like it's always there and it's there's always something interrupting them. And the music doesn't just do this. We also get this with sound. This goes back to the color. When Art and Tashi have their first kiss in the Applebee's parking lot, they're interrupted very harshly and suddenly by the garbage being thrown out at the Applebee's. And not only is it they're being interrupted by something, when they look over to the trash can, there's red everywhere in that shot. And so it's like Patrick is there. Even though Tashi and Art are, by the way, both wearing blue, Patrick is there in red, interrupting their kiss, interrupting their relationship. And they try to ignore it. They laugh it off and keep kissing, but it's still there. And that's just it was so powerful.
In the same way, when Tashi cheats with Patrick, there's the huge poster of Art behind her,
exactly
with
right
the
there,
blue light
exactly
on the building behind, watching over them.
Yes, and also in that scene when she and Patrick finally sleep together, the music that's playing is not the big bombastic techno score. It's this like children's choral music, and it's really sad and haunting. And that same music plays when Tashi, after she's injured, she goes and sits down under that tree and sort of realizes that she's never going to play tennis again. Both of those moments are her mourning the life she could have had. First, with the injury, she's mourning this, tennis career that she can't have. And when she's sleeping with Patrick in the car as that music is playing, she's sort of mourning the loss of the life she could have had with Patrick. What if she had chosen Patrick? What if she had married him and been his coach instead? And I was I was really struck by the way that they use that music to tell that part of the story. And even visually, like you're saying, there's always stuff interrupting these different characters. Like there's always something physically in between the different iterations of these couples. It's either a tennis net, it's like a physical, it's a car, it's a a picture of art up on a big bulletin board. Like there's always something physically interrupting them or that comes between them as they're trying to connect with one another. None of them can exist without the third one. It's always there. And even there are even like other fun visual elements too in this movie. Like there's so many phallic images, like the churros and the bananas and the tennis rackets. Like they're, you know, dicks are everywhere, and that's so fun and lovely. It's just every element of this movie is telling the story, and that's what a movie's supposed to do. But this one's doing it really,
it's a
really
shockingly cohesive film. Where every single aspect of it is collaborative. They're also readable. They're so clear. Even though they have this depth and you can interpret the colors for hours on end, all of the elements are so legible and cohesive, even while the plot's moving a mile a minute and you're jumping in this nonlinear structure. It's such a beautifully crafted movie. And I've been thinking about this because we talked about Queer a couple of weeks ago over on Patreon, which was the next Luca film. And that's Daniel Craig. It's the adaptation of the William S. Burroughs novel. And I loved that one so much too. And I think we've also seen his Suspiria, which I think is very similar to Challengers because they both have this intense sport in the background as people are kind of flaming out in real time. I think it's not just how beautiful the clothing is, it's how he positions his actors. Like, I like the way he sees the world. I like the way he thinks, but I also like the way he poses the actors. He positions, he frames them. I noticed all these slow zooms this time. And I think my favorite sequence in the film is Art and Patrick watching Tashi.
Yeah, it's so good.
At the party and at the first match of hers that they attend together. It's not just how synchronized they are, it's how much space is in the frame for us to just track their movements or see that quick zoom up shot when Patrick grabs Art's leg. So much of Queer felt like it was about bodies.
Yes.
Where it was about one of them is really cold at night and asks if he can sleep in bed with the other one, and it's that kind of snuggling, but also there's so much distance between them. It was those almost mirage double-tracked shots where you'd see this shadow of Daniel Craig reaching up and like stroking Drew Starkey's face. And this film isn't that restrained and wistful and dreamlike. It's like you said with the music, it is so intense and in your face and quick, but I think there's still that attention to bodies.
Definitely. Yeah.
There's that space for character.
Absolutely. In the scene after the scene where Patrick first tells Art that he slept with Tashi, like when they're still young, and they go out into the tennis court and they are like holding each other and doing these stretches, and there's this push pull, and then at one point Art lets go of Patrick and Patrick falls to the ground, but Patrick, often in the movie, he's like sitting in positions of submission. Like his legs are open, he's smiling, he's welcoming. Even later on in the sauna, his legs are wide open. Like you could interpret it as this like dick swinging aggression, or this act of submission of like, you know, like desperate desire and want. And there's so the way that the different characters touch each other, and even Tashi and Art in bed when they're trying to physically connect and they just can't, and then he just like lays his head in her lap and it's the saddest thing you've ever seen. Yeah, the bodies are huge here.
But that submission is there, I think, throughout the film. The thing that struck me about the finale, because I knew it was coming, I knew it was going to end right in the middle at this fever pitch, it was hearing the tennis ball bounce after Patrick chooses not to even swing at it.
Oh yeah, right, when Patrick is revealed that he slept with Tashi.
Yeah, it's how the movie ends. It's that Patrick chooses to catch Art instead of responding to the volley and hitting the ball. Yes. And it felt like another act of submission.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, and it's like, is that him letting him win, or is that him just submitting to him, period? Like, is it an evil act, or is it a reconciling thing?
It's interesting because he already broke the rules. There is
Patrick,
like the sanctity of tennis between these three people. The reason during the Macbeth part, when we were talking about how it's almost a greater treason to threaten to throw a match than to sleep with someone's wife.
Yes.
It's interesting because he's kind of throwing the game there. Because he probably could have answered that volley. I don't know what the right term is. He could have swung to hit the tennis ball back.
Right.
And
but he doesn't do that.
instead, he decides to catch Art.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a choice. He's making a choice to prioritize something over tennis.
Yes.
Which should be treachery
right.
to Tashi and Art.
But to Patrick, it's not. I think Patrick is more invested in his relationships with the two of them than they are. I mean, Art is constantly telling Tashi that he loves her and how could anybody not be in love with you? But I think for Art, Tashi and tennis are entangled together. And I think for Patrick, not that they're separate for Patrick, but I think he has the clearest view than the other two do.
That's why he's red. That's why he is passion and fire. He's just, I mean, she talks about like how is raw talent working out for you? Because he has no discipline versus Art, who is all discipline and much less of the natural talent.
Yes. Yeah.
Ooh. Interesting. I'm getting more and more out of this talking about it. I feel like...
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to circle back. I wanted to ask you with your kind of color theory work here. We use that term in our own way. Don't get mad at us.
You use it. I refuse.
Yes, I choose to. I also say mediums instead of media.
Well, that's what we all do.
That's an intentional choice. Why? What do you make of the red light coming off the back of the car?
Oh, I think that is Tashi only focusing on Patrick in that moment. I think she hasn't forgotten about Art again because there's a big fucking billboard of Art right behind them. But in that shot, he's not in there. And I think that is her, because that's right before she decides. Like that's right before she kisses him, right?
Right. And they are still talking about Art, so he is still kind of present.
He's still there, yeah. But that is her sort of, I think, singling in. Like her focus is narrowing, and she's like, nope, yes. I want Patrick right now.
It's the absence of, and is she wearing white?
She's wearing a white t-shirt and a brown sweater.
Okay. So
over her dark blue nightgown.
Yeah, of course. But you've got the white that is this aspect of performance.
Yes.
But white is also impressionable, right? Any other color that touches it or stains it will change it. So the red light transforms the white.
Exactly.
Into being this. I mean, when she talks about him later, like, you're not in my fan club, it's almost like she's now wearing a bright red t-shirt.
Yes.
So she's converted to that side.
Sure, yeah.
Because that's almost the only time, apart from the Stanford thing, which is complicated because she and Art are both wearing red and that's Patrick's color, but those are the years she's...
And Patrick never goes to Stanford, so he's always there for them. They're at Stanford, but they're without Patrick, but they're thinking of him and missing him and needing him.
It kind of reminds me of when people go to sporting events and they paint their faces.
Yeah.
Or they like when men don't wear shirts and they paint their chest too, so their whole body is the color of the team. That's almost what it looks like with the red light hitting Tashi.
Yeah.
Because Patrick's not... He's almost blocking the light with his body where we don't really see him bathed in that color as much. It's more just the incidental lighting of the scene. The red is more hitting her.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, because he doesn't need it to, because it comes from him.
Yes, it emanates from him.
Yes. It's beautiful. I mean, this movie is so rewarding on multiple rewatches because you will find all of these details that just add and add and add to the storytelling. It's really great.
Definitely going to revisit it. And I think we're just, Josh O'Connor.
Oh my God, he's so good.
I went into this movie thinking it was a Zendaya film, which is great. I mean, loved her from Euphoria.
And she's really great in this, yeah.
Yes. I mean, especially Euphoria. I think she does some incredible work, especially in season 2, that one episode with the intervention where she runs away.
Yeah, nuts.
Unbelievable work.
Really good.
And the end of season 1, she's great. I was fine with it being a Zendaya movie, but he just steals every moment of the film. And we're used to seeing him be goofy in the Jane Austen adaptation, that Emma, that he was so silly and fun in, or being so serious and crushed and strained in The Crown, where he plays the young Charles.
Right.
He was so good here and so big. Like, he has such incredible range. We have to start talking about him as one of the best working actors.
He was really, really good. And Mike Face, too. I mean, he's so tragic and just a heartbreaking performance, and he's doing a lot with his face, and you really feel for him the whole way through.
That's exactly where I was going next, because I think that's the toughest role to play.
Yeah.
Like, obviously for Zendaya, there's a ton of work she's doing in flashbacks where she gets to be all these different versions of the character, but on paper, most of her screen time is her sitting watching two people play tennis, moving her face back and forth.
It's true.
Which
it's a lot what she does.
I mean, it almost reminds me of Tom Hardy in Dunkirk,
sure,
where he's doing all this eye acting and he's barely talking. He's not doing anything else, which makes it a more impressive physical performance.
And she's also wearing sunglasses, so you can't even see her eyes until she takes them off. Yeah.
And I think Patrick is the most exciting character to watch, but what Mike Feist does as art is the most impressive. There's so much range within this one character. Yeah, I mean, he really looked like all those different eras. The way he puffed out in the sauna looked like a different guy.
He did, yeah.
He
Whereas
was
Patrick
incredible.
looked like same old shitty Patrick. yeah.
It's just a stunning, stunning film.
It was so fun to watch and talk about. I loved your Macbeth stuff. That was such a delight. Yeah.
I loved the color work. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
To extend the love fest to the audience.
I hope you all have equally healthy relationships as these three people do. Let us know what you thought if you're on YouTube in the comments down below. If you're not on YouTube, you're just listening as a podcast, you can send us an email at secondbreakfastpod@gmail.com, or you can DM us over on Instagram.
If you enjoy our movie discussions, we obviously do those every Tuesday pretty much now. We talked about Red Rooms a couple weeks ago, which is one of the most upsetting, challenging, will stick with you. A lot of room for interpretation. It's a French horror film. It's really fucked up. So go check that episode out because we had a lot of fun there. And we just dropped a bonus episode over on Patreon, which is only $2 a month, which is less than any podcast Patreon you will find anywhere. You can support the show and get access to the whole back catalog of bonus episodes, including the Breakfast Buffet Roundup series. We just dropped kind of an Oscar award season episode talking about big, buzzy movies going into the Oscars. And that is talking about Nickel Boys, which is an unbelievable kind of Jim Crow era first-person narrative. It's
beautiful,
shocking, it's horrifying, and it's really gripping. I loved being able to talk about that. We also cover Brady Corbet's The Brutalist, and that spawns a larger discussion about American epics and why they're always tragedies, why they're always these sweeping tragedies. And then we kind of finish out the discussion with A Complete Unknown and our skepticism of the biopic genre and how Timothée Chalamet just won us over.
Yeah.
And kind of the three pillars of that film that we get into.
Yeah, it was a really fun discussion. Yeah, and we do all kinds of other stuff over the Patreon. And it's $2 a month because we are second breakfast. So, we got a theme of two over here. Yeah. So go check us out. Also, make sure you check out Cam's latest book, Lemon Tarts in Space. It is a rip-roaring ride through space and time. It is a light sci-fi, dark comedy. Alien meets Monty Python.
It's the funniest cancer comedy you'll read this year.
It's true, or ever, mayhaps. You can get it as a novel, or you can read it or listen to it as an audio drama. Links down below. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. Make sure to like and subscribe and feed the robots so we can keep doing this. And let us know what you thought of this movie, and we'll see you on Friday with another brand new episode.